Shalom. I'd like to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kodash, and double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. I came across this story here, brothers, and this is another prime example of why the scriptures tells us to walk circumspectly because the days are evil. And ultimately, those of us who are in the scriptures, we know that this was judgment on this Jake here. But let's get right into it. Fort Worth police worked to identify women seen with man in Deep Ellum, Texas, night before his death. Brothers, the onus is on us to read these scriptures and extrapolate all that we can through the Spirit, because the scripture states the things that were written before time were written for our learning. Let's look at what King Solomon had to say. In Proverbs chapter 23, verses 26 through 28, and it reads, "My son, give me your heart." See, brothers, we have to give our mind, heart meaning the mind. We have to give our mind over to the ways of the Lord. "And let your eyes observe my ways. For a harlot is a deep pit, and a seductress is a narrow well. She also lies in wait as a victim, and increases the unfaithful among men." What are we unfaithful to? The Lord, our power, right? He's our first love. But nevertheless, let me get back to the story here. Listen closely and watch what happened to this Jake.
Fort Worth police are investigating after finding a man dead in his Fort Worth apartment last month. Police are now asking for help in identifying two women caught on camera with him the night before in Deep Ellum. Fox 4's Amelia Jones has more on the investigation. Amelia.
Blake, Fort Worth police are trying to identify the two women in the surveillance video. Police wouldn't say why they want to identify them or if they believe the two have anything to do with 26-year-old Devin Danford's death. Take a close look at this surveillance video. Fort Worth police are looking to identify these two women. Detectives say 26-year-old Devin Danford was in the Deep Ellum area the night of Saturday, August 26th. Detectives say one of these two women went with Danford back to his Fort Worth apartment that night. The next morning, detectives say Danford was found unresponsive in his apartment, and the woman was nowhere to be found. Several items were missing from Danford's apartment, including this necklace that detectives say Danford was wearing at the club that night. The medical examiner has not released a cause of death. Fort Worth police would not say what suspicions they have about Danford's death. They also wouldn't say if the two women in the video are involved in any way. Danford's neighbor spoke to us off camera and told us he doesn't recognize the two women. He said Danford was always friendly and well-liked in the apartment complex. We want to show you the images again. Take another look at the two women police are trying to identify. If you can identify either of them, you're asked to contact Fort Worth Police. Fort Worth police declined our request for an interview today. They posted the surveillance video on the department's Facebook page on Friday, and Blake, it already has almost 3,000 shares.
No one out of that 3,000 shares, how many people repented? But you have to consider what happened to Jake. He ended up robbed, and now he's in the spiritual realm. Let's go from there, and let's go to, let me come out of this, brothers. I don't know why. I was trying to delete this here. Let's go from there to go to Proverbs chapter 7, and we'll start at verse 7, right? And this is King Solomon here, and he states, we'll start at verse 6. "At the window of my house, I looked out through my lattice. I saw among the simple, and I noticed among the young men a youth who had no sense." What is this young man lacking here? Just like this Jake in his news story. He's lacking the oil. He's void of the Spirit. Remember the proverb that states the understanding of the scripture, and again, I'm paraphrasing. It becomes a light unto our feet. It guides us, brothers. Verse 8, let's continue. "He was going down the street near her corner, walking along in the direction of her house at twilight as the day was fading, as the dark night set in. Then out came a woman to meet him." Look how she was dressed, brothers. "Dressed like a prostitute with crafty intent. She is unruly and defiant. Her feet do not stay at home. Now in the street, now in the squares. At every corner she lurks." Don't we have a common saying today? She belongs to the streets. Let's continue. "She took hold of him and kissed him, and with brazen face she said, right? There's not another woman on the earth currently bold or as brazen as the so-called black woman, right? The Israelite woman is the most bold and arrogant woman walking around on the earth today. Now listen to the game she runs, because women were running game back then. Verse 14, today I have fulfilled my vows, and I have food for my fellowship offering at home. So I came out to meet you. I looked for you and have found you. I have covered my bed with colored linens from Egypt. She made all kinds of accommodations, right? I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us drink deeply of love until morning. Let us enjoy let us enjoy ourselves with love. Listen to what she tells him. My husband is not at home. He has gone on a long journey. He took his purse filled with money and not return until full moon. And many of you Jakes, that's why Yahweh Shai called this a wicked and adulterous generation. A woman, as long as she looks good to you, you'll still lie with her. She can tell you she has a man. She can tell you she's married. She can tell you she's engaged. But Jake, you don't give a damn. You'll still lie with the woman regardless of what she tells you, right? And she's just as guilty for still lying with you as well. But let's look at what happens to this individual. Verse 21, with persuasive words, she leads him astray. Didn't that happen to this Jake in this news story here? She seduces him with her smooth talk. All at once, he follows her. Then the news anchor states the woman went back with him to his apartment. See, the scripture still, like the word says, this is the living, breathing word of the Lord, right? So whether Jake went back to her spot or she went back to his spot, she still seduced him, man, right? And Jake, being void of the Spirit, fell for it. And all of it was orchestrated by the Lord. Doesn't the scripture tells us the Lord creates good and evil? Should there be evil in the city and the Lord hath not done it? Remember, as I mentioned from the very onset of this video, when you do not serve the Lord, he's going to orchestrate your death, right? Verse 22, let's pick it back up there. All at once he follows her, like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose, till an arrow pierces his liver, like a bird darting into a snare. Little knowing, Jake don't even know, it will cost him his life. I know Jake was probably thinking he's going to hook up with this babe. He's going to have a story to tell. But look, like I said before, now Jake is deleted and he was robbed. King Solomon goes on to state in verse 24, now then, my sons, listen to me. Pay attention to what I have to say. So this not only goes for you, the listener, but for me too as well. Do not let your heart turn to her ways or stray into her paths. Many are the victim she has brought down, brothers. Her slain are a mighty throng. Her house is a highway to the grave, leading down to the chambers of death. And I want to share something with you, brothers. What's the definition of mighty throng? A multitude of assembled persons, a large number, a crowding together of many persons. See, brothers, this is not the first time they done this, man. This is not the first time they've done this. Let's continue from there, man. Let's go from here to Ecclesiasticus chapter 9, and we'll start at verse 2. And it reads, give not thy soul unto a woman to set her foot, brothers, upon thy substance. Meet not with an harlot, lest thou fall into her snares. What happened to Jake? He fell into a snare of the woman, which essentially the Lord used that woman to judge him. Use not much company of a woman that is a singer. And this is just my humble opinion. A singer, a stripper, an Instagram model, IG model, whatever the case may be. It goes on to state why. Least thou be taken with her attempts, brothers. Anything can happen to you brothers out there, man. Remember, the scripture states, walk circumspectly because the days are evil. Verse 5 tells us not even look at them all the time, right? Gaze not on a maid, lest thou fall. Pardon me, brothers. Gaze not on a maid, that thou fall not by those things that are precious in her. What's precious in her? Those eyes, those lips, those breasts, those hips, right? Them long legs. Those are things that we find precious in a woman. That box, right? Give not thy soul unto harlots, lest thou lose thine inheritance. And verse 7 is a beautiful verse because this is exactly what Jake was doing. Look not around about thee in the city of the streets. Jake, what did you meet this woman? What did he meet this woman? While he was out in the streets, man. There's a lot of Jakes out there now. You 2/3. You belong to the streets, brothers. You brothers, you hadn't repented. You're wicked. You're running around wreaking havoc on the earth. You Jakes belong to the streets too as well. He goes on to state why. Neither wander thou in a solitary place thereof. Right? Verse 8, and we'll move on. Turn away thine eye from a beautiful woman, and look not upon another's beauty. For many have been deceived by the beauty of a woman, man. Jake was deceived here. Let's go from here, right? See? Ecclesiasticus, chapter 9, verse 13. See, this is why we always should be praying and seeking the Lord, right? Remember, a man's steps are ordered by the Lord. Let's continue. Keep thee far from the man or woman, in this case, that hath power to kill, so shalt thou not doubt the fear of death. And if thou come unto him, make no fault, lest he take away thy life presently. Remember that thou goest in the midst of snares, Jake, and thou walkest upon the battlements of the city. You got to remember, the world has no clue that there's a spiritual battle going on, brothers, right? Even when Yahushua sent his servants out to do the work, he said, remember, he gave them powers over snakes and serpents and vipers, basically. And you got to remember, brothers, even to this day, man, there's all sort of traps and snares and battlements out there for you, brothers, man. You got to remember, even Satan, he travels up and down, to and fro, seeking whom he can devour. And Jake got devoured, man. Let's go from there. Now I'll close out with this, brothers. Ecclesiasticus chapter 12, verse 13. Who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent, or such as come by nigh wild beasts? See, brothers, don't be, I know, brothers, this is a beautiful thing to look upon here, man. But this, brothers, you got to be circumspect, brothers, because a lot of these women, they are snakes, they are serpents, they are vipers, brothers. And who's going to pity you when things happen to you, brothers? Let me come out of this, man, because I'm like you, man. I love beautiful women, women of the world, women of the tribes. I enjoy them all, brothers. But I do understand the circumstances in which we're dealing with. You have to understand the condition of the battles, brothers. And I hope that this lesson has been edifying. Shalom.